I think we're live.
Yeah, I am so pumped for this today, yo. I mean, I cannot tell you how many calls we are getting about loose leash walking, about struggles with walking next to other dogs or in all types of environments from all over America. So I think this is such a great opportunity for us to reach out to our community and to, everyone to help them out through this kind of awkward struggle that I feel, I don't know, what do you feel like you're hearing?
Well, before we get started, let's just make sure that we are actually live. So do us a favor. If you can see us, if you can hear us, before we get started, just drop something in the comments. A thumbs up, hello, hi.
And yeah, tell us where you're from as well. Exactly. So yeah, we want to know where you're from and what brought you here. Did you hear about it from someone? Did someone invite you? Do you know us? Oh, yay. Okay, awesome. We have a couple that are already on. Hi, so excited. We're excited that you're here.
Oh, look at the paw print. So do us a favor. If you're on Facebook watching this, because we are streaming, we're using a platform called StreamYard, which allows us to go into multiple groups and our YouTube channel. So wherever you're watching us, Anita's in the house.
Yeah.
Wherever you're watching us, if you can click, there's a link where there's some wording where you see our video, there's some words. And then there's the words that says something like, click here on StreamYard so that we can see who you are. Now, I can't see you, but I can at least see your name. So if you click the link, it's going to look like this. It's like Jennifer. She's out in Oakland. Longtime friend. Girl, this girl knows me really, really well.
I love it.
If you don't click the link, then it's going to say Facebook user. So click the link. There we go. Hello, Anita. So
yeah, I just want to address, someone said they were looking for a Zoom link. With the reason that we're not doing it on Zoom is, one, so that you can see our beautiful faces as we do this, and two, we can get into a lot of groups because it's so important that we're able to reach out into all of our venues. So we are totally watching your comments and we're going to be engaging with you throughout, but we wanted to be able to reach as many people as possible from Lincoln, Nebraska. Oh my gosh, welcome from Panama.
Who's this from Panama? Is this my cousin or is this other family? So if you are watching us, again, click that link. So wherever you see the wording, there should be some wording that says something like they're streaming from StreamYard. Click that link and we'll be able to see your name. Henrik from Sweden, in the middle of the night. It's probably about 2:00 in the morning. Is that right, Henrik? It is, my cousin. Yay.
Awesome. It's okay that you don't see the StreamYard link because if you're commenting on this post, then you're in the right spot. So no need to look for any more links. If you're commenting already, you're good.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. So we are here today because we are talking about loose leash walking. And this is a masterclass, which means we're going to be diving in deep, giving you every tip and trick that we can think of. Just like Julie mentioned at the very beginning, it's one of the reasons why we have opened this up is because there's a lot of calls coming in. So if you're wherever you're at, are you struggling yourself personally? If you're a dog trainer, are you seeing a lot of calls around, families and pet parents that are struggling? Let's hear it. Let's hear you in the comments. What are you going to say, Julie?
Oh, no, I'm reading off. People are from Mexico, from Connecticut. Thank you, Anita, for the tech support for some people who are a little bit confused. We love Miss Anita. She has also partnered with us to teach our puppy classes sometimes. So we really appreciate you jumping in, girl.
Well, let's go ahead and jump in and we're going to start our presentation. Plan to be here we're going to try to wrap it up in less than 90 minutes. We may get through it in an hour, but we have a special loose leash walking guide that we worked on for a very long time that's going to mimic all of the stuff that you're hearing. So we're going to be dropping in soon the link where you'll be able to download that ebook. But let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Can you see the screen, Julie?
Yeah, we are looking good.
All right. So again, it's all about loose leash walking. That is what we're jumping into today. That's our topic. I am Yo Armendariz. I am the founder of Canine Learning Academy, and I'm streaming from Sunset Beach, California, which is kind of near Huntington Beach, I'd say. And Julie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Julie Fryman. I am the company supervisor at Canine Learning Academy, and Yo and I have been amazing partners for the past 4 years teaching these kind of classes and doing workshops. And you can tell that through that list of our certifications that we are very invested in our continuing education and being a part of the community, as well as learning as much as we can, because we want to be able to give you as many tools in your toolbox to get you through some of these challenges that we're hearing about.
And a real short story about how I met Julie. So I was, are you going to get embarrassed, Julie?
Maybe.
I was one of Nan Arthur was my KPA training instructor. And I went through later on, I think it was a couple years later, and went and assisted her. And during that assisting time, I met Julie. I was there with my oldest son, Curtis, who was also going through the Karen Pryor Academy. And I think there was 6 people in your class. Is that right, Julie?
Yeah, that's right.
If you guys aren't aware of Karen Pryor Academy, it is a really strenuous program. Highly recommended if you're thinking about going into dog training. Specifically, I like how they're using the clicker. It's all positive reinforcement training, and there's a lot of education that backs it. But going back to my story, Julie was a gem. Julie was like a science nerd combined with, like, those of you that know operating systems, she was definitely a promoter. She'd go in, with this theatrical like thing with her dog, who was at that time, Opal Blossom, was really young. I think she was under a year old.
Yeah, she was 7 months when we went through the program. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nan was like, hey, can you assist? Because I think I thought maybe you guys had an odd number. For some reason, I was assisting in your group, and I really got a chance to get to know her and just really go, oh my gosh, if I could adopt her, I would, but I can't. But really, really liked her. And she went on to be a really good trainer working for another company for a little while. And I kept, in contact with her, letting her know that, like, hey, there's always going to be an opportunity for you to come over and work with Canine Learning Academy. So it took about a year before you came over, right?
Yeah. I had my own training business, and things in the works just didn't happen. The people that I was working for it wasn't a great fit. And I reached out to Yo, and she was like, I've got a contract for you. We're going to make this work. We hooked up, and we've been together ever since. And for those of you that have been following us, we just completed the most amazing 10-day road trip, rehoming a special needs dog.
We're going to talk about that later. Hold on.
I know. I'm just telling them that we have had some amazing adventures. So hopefully if you scroll through the group, you're going to see some of the most amazing pictures and adventures that we've had together over the past few years.
Well, I am very, very proud of what you've done so far, Julie, and looking forward to everything that you get to contribute to the dog training industry. And those of you that know Julie and have worked with her, give her some props, because she's pretty amazing. All right.
Yeah, let's get off of me and get into the subject, which is our masterclass agenda. So these are going to be our points that we're going to hit throughout this class. Of course, we would love to tell you how, why, and what to do at every point, but we only have an hour to 90 minutes. So we're going to hit these really succinctly and give you guys the best information that we can, what loose leash locking looks like, why it's important to you. We want to hear from you guys. So remember to keep in contact, dropping those comments in. Why dogs pull on leash, what's going on behind all the pulling, and how to change your dog's pulling. Oh, thank you guys. Reading canine body language. It's hard to communicate if we speak English and they don't. So we're going to teach you guys how to translate some of that communication. Assessing the environment and how to set your dog up for success in those environments. The ideal equipment. So what we use in our training program, as well as what we recommend our clients use. Candles and triggers. We're going to go deep dive into that. So put a pin in that, and we're going to explain that to you in a minute. Some pattern gains, making training fun, which is so important, because if you're not having fun, guess what? Your face isn't having fun, and your dog knows it. So making sure that we're having fun, we're having a good time. And then how our company, Canine Learning Academy, can can help you take that next level to really improve these skills as we go.
That is a lot. It's a fully loaded masterclass, and I'm going to be dropping soon in the next 5 minutes one of the links that'll allow you to download the guide or ebook that's going to basically go over everything, but in a text form. Julie, I'll probably have you, or I'll send it out to Anita in just a second and have her post it in whatever group she's in. But we'll go ahead and get started. Starting off with, what does loose leash walking actually mean to you?
That is such a tongue tie. Like if you try to say loose leash walking multiple times, so just bear with us if we trip over ourselves.
I want you to drop it in the chat without looking at any of the comments. When someone says, loose leash walking or walking on a loose leash, what does that actually mean? Go ahead and define it. I love this question because it's going to mean something different to every single person, depending on where you live, what kind of dog you have,
Oh my gosh, you're so in my head because I was just thinking that it's so very different when we just say loose leash walking to everyone and all of the different areas that we live in. We live in a beach community where there's lots of city environments. So
I love Christine's comment. Loose leash walking to me is a slack in the leash and not tripping me. So that's two, right? There's a bend in the leash. It's not tight, and the dog is not crossing the path to trip her. So that's two things. Not pulling. So Anna Rosa, perfect. Not pulling. Yeah. Facebook user, calm and stress-free. Okay. Enjoyable walk for both the owner and the pup. See, awesome. And then Jennifer here, just no pulling. So loose leash walking to her means just absolutely no pulling. Walking by my side and not sniffing. Now it's just see how everyone's going to have their interpretation, which is why it can be really confusing for a dog because they really, you have to.
Well, I think it's confusing even for people, that's why we're asking you this question, because when we say loose leash walking, we all have an image in our head. So having an exercise walk versus that walk that you're like groggy in the morning and you've got your coffee in hand, and then sniffing and exploring, these are all different facets of different kinds of walks.
So when I talk about teaching a pet parent loose leash walking, I specifically say, let's just reward the loose leash. Right. That's the main, just a relaxed leash, a bend in the leash. The harness, where it's hooked, if it's hooked in the front, it's forming that letter J, no tension. Now, some people don't have a preference of where their dog is going to be, whether it's in front, side, or rear. And as we go through the course, I want you to start thinking about, what do you really want? Or if you're a dog trainer, go, what is it that the pet parent needs? Because every single dog, every single city, every single sidewalk and environment is all going to determine what they need. So there's not just one way to teach loose leash walking. And there's no right or wrong in this instance because it comes down to your personal preference. So
Can you highlight Henrik's comment? Because this is just such an amazing way to describe it. It's a relaxing symbiosis between me and my dog. That is a beautiful way to state that. Thank you so much for that comment, because it really talks about how both sides of the leash are involved in this training. So thank you so much for that. That's beautiful.
And this is one of our newest students, Jen, who has just recently got a puppy, asking, this is a really good question. Her dog gets confused between Safari and loose leash walking or walk with me. This is really common when we see this with our students. So going into preference, if you live in the city, a busy city with a very small sidewalk, and you have a large dog, say 140 pounds, drop it in the chat. Would you prefer your dog to walk in front of you, beside you, or behind you? Drop it in the chat. Because most of the time our dogs have not been taught where we want them to walk, which is why it's sometimes a struggle and it's frustrating for both the pet parent and the dog. They don't really have that understanding, and neither does the pet parent. They're just walking and they're expecting their dog to walk, not beside them or whatever that is. And they really haven't thought about what is the criteria to our walk. Beside me. Okay.
Beside, in front of me, relaxed, calm dog. All of these are really good answers. And like Yo said before, there is no right or wrong. We're just looking for what you're actually thinking when we're talking about these things.
So next question I have is, if you have this is another scenario. In Newport Beach, there's a lot of coyotes. In fact, there's a lot of coyotes here in Sunset Beach. So let's say you have a dog that's under 10 pounds and you have to walk at 4:00 in the morning because you have to be at work by 5:30. Would you prefer your dog to walk in front of you, beside you, or behind you?
Or any wild animal. Some of you, like Henrik, lives in Sweden. I'm sure there's bears and mountain lions and all sorts of brave animals that are looking for yummy little treats. So this is a good question.
And these are kind of the questions we would ask our pet parents, like what's going on. So for us, usually a small dog that could possibly get attacked, we have them walk in front. We teach the pet parent to walk their dog in front so they can keep an eye on things, keep an eye on the environment, because behind here, and it's happened right here in Huntington, the coyotes will come right out of the bushes and snatch dog right off leash. All right.
Or that would be directly in front of me or in my purse. I love that, Christine. Yeah, that would be me. I'd just be like, bloop, right in the bag, but not always an option for everyone. So I do like that answer though.
Yeah. So it's just something to think about when we all talk about, walking on a loose leash. Every single person in every single environment is going to be a little different. So I want you to have a think about that. So when your dog does walk calmly on their leash, they're not pulling, they're not lunging. Would you be okay with that? So just type in yes, I would absolutely be okay with that if you are. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. So Julie, talk to us a little bit about why this is so important.
Yeah. Why is your dog's walk so important to you? So some of our clients, even here in the beach communities, we reach weather sometimes up to 100 degrees. And then in Sweden, I'm sure you get down to -5 degrees. So what's behind the walk that's so important to you? Drop it in the chat. Tell me, is it exercise for both of you? Is it bonding time? Is it that socialization and exposure into the environment? Is it the only way your dog will go potty? I know many dogs like that, or you don't have a restroom area. So what is it about your walk that is so important to you and that brought you to this class today? Oh, good.
Yeah, here I don't have a backyard. I have a deck. And so any dog that's over 10 pounds, I have to take them out on leash. But I don't necessarily have to go for a walk. It could just simply be a potty out on leash in front of my house.
Ooh, I love this. Exercise for both of us. So is the focus the exercise health for you, or is it the exercise health for your dog? So whose walk is it really
good
when we're
question.
talking about the exercise for both of us, right? Because there's I'm not a runner. I really despise running, but there's lots of ways to exercise, right? There's yoga, there's rowing, there's swimming, there's all sorts of ways. Daily adventure. I like that. Change of environment.
You can't read these off. You have to tell me. I mean, you either have to. There we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It depends on the dog and the situation. Yeah, absolutely. Really taking that into account, especially if you're a trainer, talking to people about the area that they live in.
And Sheamus here says, yeah, unwinding for me from work. But what if it's not enjoyable?
Yeah. Is your dog yanking you down the street? Is it still enjoyable for you both?
I think it's really important to understand what the purpose of the walk is for. And if it's simply to go potty, if it's simply to bond, there are a lot of other ways to bond, right?
I love what Henrik said. If you can put that up, it says in Scandinavia, you have to go out walking the dog by law. So, could you elaborate on that just a little bit more? Is it you have to take them out every day, or is there a minimum? Because I would think that might be really difficult with all of the snow and negative freezing temperatures. So I'd love to know more about that, Henrik. If you can just drop it in what the law says about the walking of your dog.
All right. As he does that, we'll go on.
Well, I do want to just pop this question. So before we change the slide, thinking about your perfect walk, what would it feel like to have that walk with your dog? What does it feel like? What are you thinking in your head? What's your dream? What you need to go out at least every 5 hours. Interesting. What's going on behind all of this, the walk? What would it feel like to walk with your dog down the street on a loose leash? So drop it in the chat. We'll move on. But I really want to know what you guys are feeling in the emotion side of the loose leash walking as well.
All right. Tell me which comments to pull up as we move on. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk about a little bit about why dogs actually pull, because there's lots of different reasons. Usually frustration, fear, it's reinforcing. It's something that they've actually learned. They wanted to go somewhere and they started pulling and the pet parent went with them. So it works. Overly excited. They wanted to pull because they wanted more space. They might be pulling in the opposite direction. It moves them closer to whatever it is they want. You'll see this a lot of times when the family starts to move, or the dog and their pet parent starts to move closer to the home. You'll see them start pulling. So let me see. Did I actually put some videos in here? I did. Yeah. So it's important to slow down that exit and to be mindful of like, oh, wow, my dog is, definitely pulling. Let's find out why. And kind of make that observation of like, what is it that they want? So how I have this whole video in here. So let me stop this video. Okay. So here we have on the left, we've got, let me see if it'll play again.
Oh, that's a beautiful one that Jennifer just posted her comment. My wish is to be able to hold a coffee with the same hand that's holding the leash and it won't spill. That's a really good goal. And I like how specific you are with that.
That's really good. So drop it in the comment. What is it in the environment that your dog is pulling towards? If you have something in the environment, go ahead and drop it in the chat, because we're going to talk a little bit about those triggers in just a minute. Has your dog always pulled on leash, or was it a specific incident that happened? Because that can shift your dog from being a really good walker to all of a sudden not walking on a loose leash anymore. Things in the environment, things that possibly have happened. And then think about, what is your relationship with your dog? Oh, foxes.
Oh, Anita, foxes. I think my dog would probably struggle with that as well. Another dog. Very, very common. We hear that a lot. Everything. I get that.
Yeah. And if you think about, okay, so if there's another dog in the environment, so let's just pull this one right here. Well, you know what? Let's do foxes. So Anita, when your dog pulls, when they see a fox, your dog pulls, are they pulling towards the fox or away from the fox? So when we see a dog pull towards the trigger, it could be for a reason of, I want to stop that thing from moving. I'm super excited. I want to go meet that thing, right? Because it's moving, especially if you've got a dog that's, a prey drive dog. They might just want to go gobble that thing up,
Yeah, she answered below. They're pulling towards the foxes. Okay. So yeah, definitely like chase that chase mentality, that prey drive that a lot of us deal with because it's so ingrained in our dogs.
Yeah. So once you understand the why, then it's really, it's going to be a lot easier to understand what you need to do. So I want you to have a think about it. Once you think about it, maybe write it down, drop it in the chat. Why do you think your dog is pulling? What is it? Do they want to go towards that thing because, like Anita said, chase and kill it? Do they want to see a skateboard? Do they want to stop the wheels from moving?
Oh man, you like predicted that answer. MB said my first border collie wanted to stop the bicycles and skateboarders from moving. It's
Oh
like,
my
oh, you
God.
guys are on the same level right there. And I
I
totally get that
chewed that.
with a
Yeah.
yeah, with a herding dog. They want them to either go in a different direction or they want them to stop altogether.
So yeah, so these are all the reasons why your dog is pulling. Now there are ways to, to prevent it, to have your dog do something else, but I just want you to keep in mind these are some of the this is the why. In order to understand what to do, you've got to figure out the why. If you've got a dog that's got a really high prey drive, you're going to know that dog is most likely going to go after something that's moving. Until they adjust, you're going to have to create more space, but we'll go into that in just a second. All right. Fear. Someone wrote fear. Nice.
Just never learned to walk on a leash. That's so understanding of you as well, right? Because dogs aren't born with the ability to just walk perfectly beside us. That's something that we have to invest in training them to do, whether that's with a trainer or you're doing it on your own. That dog is always pulled. So it's good to keep that in mind, that it's been working for a long time.
Okay. So here's a question, and then we're going to move on. Type in your dog's name and how long they have been pulling, meaning if they've an adolescent, maybe it's only 6 months. If they're, 4 years old, maybe it's been 3 years. So I want you to type it in the chat. And Julie, if you can write some of these down, because we're going to kind of decide whether they're in the adolescent or if there's something that's been going on for a long time. So just drop it in the chat, your dog's name, and then 6 months, 2 years, 2 weeks, 5 years. Want to just hear how long has your dog been practicing pulling on leash? First 2 years, 10 minutes. Hatchy 10 minutes, spiky 2 days. Okay.
I love it.
All right. That just tells us, like when we talk about putting together a treatment plan, this gives us information. If it's something brand new, it's, it might be a different stage in the dog's life. If it's something that they've been doing for a long time, there's a different kind of training.
Wow, we're getting some great answers on here.
Is this Dwight? Is this Shelby? Shelby, is this you? All right. Let's go ahead and let me get to the next screen. All right. I love this image. So Julie, let's drop it in and tell us what it's about.
Yeah, so a lot of you guys have probably seen this in terms of other, like business context or other things. But one of the first things when I'm talking on the phone that I get to remind people is that, pulling on leash is really the tip of the iceberg. That's the symptom that we're seeing. But just like any other, medical issue or stress related issue, there is a lot going on underneath of the surface. So, and more so than what you're actually seeing. So it may look like your dog is chasing, it may look like they're frustrated, but what's really going on underneath is a myriad of things, including, breed specific movements. We talked about prey drive. Border collies are made to herd sheep. So they want to stop other moving items if they're in a city environment. Lack of confidence, right? So if they're really nervous and they're not fully invested in connecting with you on the walk, they may not feel like it benefits them or that it's part of their, logic center that they need to be next to you. Lack of mental enrichment. So your dog may be going stir crazy inside. Anyone feel that during COVID? Like you're just like, I need to get out and go and do something. And then you go out and you start talking to people and you go, oh my God, I forgot how to be a human. So even, your dog, if there's a lack of experience or if they're just really pent up because you've been at work all day. The spay and neuter status is a big one, especially if you have an adolescent, because they're smelling the hormones around them. That doesn't mean that it's okay for them to pull. It just may be one of the reasons that they are pulling. Overstimulated senses. sights, sounds, smell, especially in a big city environment, all of the cars, all of the bikes, all of these things that we see every day. It seems very desensitized to us because we've had 20, 30, 40 years to get used to it. But if we think about the age of our dogs, 1 or 2 years is not always enough to really take that excitement down around a garbage truck or even a plane going overhead. So it could be because of their hearing, it's so much louder to them, because their smell, they can smell miles away, that they're just so excited by all of these new stimulations around them. Previous experience on leash. Has your dog ever pulled and then move forward and then your dog continues to pull, right? So if their experience is, well, when I pull, mom keeps walking, then that's what they're going to continue to do because it works, right? So learned and practiced behaviors, if they pull and you get lurched forward, well, that pulling worked. They continued to move forward. One of my biggest struggles is relying on tools over training, right? Because saying that something stops your dog from pulling or finding a quick fix, as we all know, can be really, it's either dangerous or it's something that you have to rely on all the time instead of your dog learning and really processing and taking that into account. Using a tool is like doing your kids' homework for them. Sure, it instantly pays off. They got that A, but when the test comes around, they don't know the material. So we're going to talk about equipment just a little bit later, but relying on tools over training and teaching is a big issue that we deal with on a regular basis. And then adolescence. Oh my gosh. So how many of you type in the chat that you're in that adolescent period, 6 months to sometimes 2 years, where your dog is just acting a fool out in public, just like teenagers, right? Their logic center in their brain is so much smaller than the emotional center. Their training changes almost daily, right? Sometimes they'll be the perfect dog and walking in a heel down the city street, and then sometimes they're just weaving around and wrapping you up like Home Alone style. So drop it in the chat. How many of you are dealing with an adolescent dog, 6 months to 2 years, that you're really struggling with the inconsistency, the variability of your walks? Yeah, absolutely. Total fool. Yes, I experienced that as well. My dog acted a fool when he was 18 months, all of the sudden. And so we're going to get to how to really reinforce and make sure that we stay in a good place as well. Will be soon. Oh, I like that you're here preparing for that, because the adolescent period, a lot of times it sneaks up on people and they don't realize that life changes a lot after 6 months. Perfect. Thank you guys for being so vulnerable and commenting. I really, this helps us get a better idea of how to present this information and how to make sure that we're helping you as effectively as possible. So, I'm not going to go into each one of these things, but this is what's going on underneath the surface of poor walking skills, whatever that means to you. If you're not enjoying your walk, if you feel embarrassed or you feel frustrated, or, you feel scared because your dog is pulling and running around while they're on leash, this is really what we need to understand going on below the surface before we can address what's actually above that waterline.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much.
I just dropped the loose leash walking guide. I dropped it in on YouTube. It's also going in some of the comments in your Facebook group. Those of you that have seen it, just copy that just in case someone's looking for it, they can come around and you can just post it. They go, where is it? So this is a 22-page guide that we put together. It is loaded. Show Pals picture is in there. So I see Rhonda is here. So you definitely want to make sure you grab a copy of that. All right. Beautiful. So let's move on to how do we change this pulling behavior? And we put down our top, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullets on how to change it, because it's not just, I kind of giggle when I see someone go, my dog is pulling. What do I do? And then there's a comment of, just teach them with this one thing. It's not just one thing. When it comes to teaching a dog to walk on a loose leash, it's really complicated. It's more than just teaching them where you want them to walk. And it's not just one thing that you have to learn as a pet parent or a trainer or a dog walker. There's so many factors, and that's why we're going to go over all of them, and that guide is going to also have them written just so you can get the big picture. We want you to know what we know, so we're giving it to you all. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sinatra. So Sinatra was, do you think Mom is here? I know Shelby's here, but
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Oh, I love this comment. Will you highlight this just for a second? MB said, it's like a dance. It takes a partnership and learning each step. What an eloquent way to state that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So Sinatra was a board and trained pup that I got. It was a rescue pup that I had right on early on. He's deaf, double Merle, Aussie. So you guys that are like, he's going after skateboards. This dog would actually, from a very young age, I knew he was going to chase. You can tell because he stopped, mouth closed, wouldn't move when he saw a car pass at 10 feet. And this is like starting off really early at 9 weeks. And it wasn't, it didn't go. I didn't know where it was going to go. Let me just be really honest. I didn't know whether it was going to escalate or, if we were cool. But we ended up homing him to a family in downtown Huntington, to a great couple of girls that had experience with Aussies, and they really dived into the training. Long story short, Sinatra learned how to walk on a loose leash, learned all the sign language, because he was deaf. So he did everything on sign. He would walk beautifully on leash. He would do recall, peekaboo. You guys saw the videos if you guys have ever watched me train him. And our school, he went to school all the time. But that environment it really just like messed him up. It really did. The environment was, loaded with cars, downtown Huntington, even where I live in Sunset. I don't think I would have done any better. It was like the cars moving skateboards, moving things. And it just escalated the way that he could respond. He couldn't learn anymore. He would just simply, act out. We call this, overreact. He would overreact.
Yeah, and sometimes it would be really scary, the level that he would overreact. With as much experience and learning as the parents and we invested in this dog, things would happen where there was something in his brain that would flip, right? And he would go red. He would, just be so overstimulated that you couldn't do anything. You could shove food in his face. You couldn't even pull him away because he was barking and spinning. And it got to the point to where he started to redirect. He started to put his mouth on people who were walking him. He started to jump and kangaroo punch you to get you to move with him. And it was really scary for everyone who, see, a lot of people understand that this is what they're going through. So this was probably one of the most extreme cases. And because he was deaf, we had to make sure that he could see us to even be able to do anything. And it got to the point to where even the trainers that were working with him really hated walking him. They really did not enjoy working with him. And I'm going to get a little emotional. It really broke my heart. I was constantly standing up for him because I knew that he was a good dog. He was amazing inside. He could do well under low stimulation. And that was really frustrating to hear someone call him, a bad dog, or he's aggressive, or these things that I knew that he wasn't. And I know, if that's something that you're going through, drop it in the chat, because you are not alone in any way. So we got the opportunity to help him get out of that state, but we had to make a pretty extreme move for him.
So the right move for this family was to change the environment, and that meant rehoming him. And Julie did a really good job. I mean, there's a few of you here on that I see that I've reached out to going, oh my God, I was a mess trying to figure out what to do and how we could support. But we ended up taking a 10-day road trip to rehome him to a family in North Carolina. And the reason why we were like, you know what, we get to do this is because we didn't want him to redirect on someone that he's never met before. And we wanted to be with him. If I know we talked about being a little selfish, right, Julie? We're like, we want to experience this with him. We want him to feel super safe, like every step of the way. And that meant holding his hand, holding his leash all the way there, until we do the, transition to a new family. And he wasn't overwhelmed. So MB, you're absolutely right. He was in total overwhelm. But let me tell you why I'm talking about this right here. He knew how to walk on loose leash. He knew how to focus. He knew how to recall. He knew how to do all these things. But the environment stopped him from using what he knew, his brain, to actually execute anything. But by day 3, and you guys that are on our private group, we documented every single day. By day 3, not only did he begin to listen, his whole demeanor changed, his face changed, his eyes changed, the wrinkles around his mouth changed. His muscles went from super flexed and tense to just and when we started showing videos of him by day 3, it's like his body was just flowing. And we knew, even though we knew in our heart it was the right thing to do, we actually saw the transition. So those of you struggling going, I don't know if I can put another year into this. It took 3 days for Sinatra to finally go, okay. Oh yeah, I remember all this stuff. It took 3 days.
And his mom, his new family, who has renamed him, now his name is Charlie. She just posted a video the other day of them walking on a loose leash in a forest behind their house. So the extreme circumstances that were overwhelming him, being in the city, being constantly exposed and stressed out, just changing the environment for him and giving him that ability to reset made such a big difference in his life. So,
and on day 5, when she showed up and we got a chance to meet the family in person, yeah, she was big eyes. She was like, oh my God. I did. And I know Julie has a video, but I won't show it because we're going to move on. But I did loose leash walking. Julie was recording it in front of a dog park, people stopping to watch, the family, kids, like I said, dog park people, everything. And he was just like, oh, you want me to walk on a loose leash, settle on a mat, recall, nose target, around, peekaboo. He did it all. 5 days later, he did it in the most highest distractions that most of our dogs that are that age, just turned 1, would not be able to do. And he did. So why I'm telling you this is because changing the environment was what it took to teach him to not pull on leash.
And our amazing, I know Rhonda is on here and I'm going to give her a shout out because what she talked about last night in our live Q&A was the biggest change in her understanding of loose leash walking was the understanding of canine body language. So it doesn't have to be you change everything in your life. Sometimes it just takes one thing, like we're talking about with Sinatra, the environment, or understanding what your dog is telling you, or understanding what they're asking for, the association change, the space. And that's what we're here to hopefully give you guys, that experience that you have the ability to change one thing and make it a more enjoyable process for the both of you.
So we're going to go through all these bullet points today, except a couple, but the rest are in a guide. So the guide that if you guys haven't downloaded, those of you that have seen the link, go ahead and click the link because you'll get all of the things that we're going to put in there, that guide. So let's go through all of these bullet points, starting with reading canine body language.
Yeah, so I say it all the time, and people kind of look at me like I'm silly, but your dog does not speak English, regardless of if they are hearing or if they are not. They don't speak English. So when we're trying to communicate, we need to understand what they're actually saying. And dogs communicate with their bodies. So talking about body language, if we're translating this into our human language, this green zone, that's your dog speaking at an appropriate volume. They're saying, hey, this is really cool. I like this event, or I like this environment. And that means that we get to keep going, right? Green means go. So when we're checking in with them, or if we expect them to check in with us, then we get to be laser focused on what they're trying to say. So pausing and gathering information, especially if you're in a new environment. Sometimes lip licking, you'll notice your dog, that's another one that I always mess up on. If you notice your dog is tongue flipping or licking their lips, a lot of times that's what we call a self-calming mechanism. They're starting to get a little stimulated, but it's okay because they're able to calm themselves down. Their muscles are much more relaxed. Shake-offs. I love a good shake-off because your dog can actually reset their stress quotient with shaking it off like Taylor Swift style. So that is a really amazing thing. I always make a big deal when my dogs shake off their whole body because very good communication. So when we get into this yellow zone, your dog is starting to raise their voice. It's not something that we need to be immediately concerned about, but it is something that we need to start assessing our environment. We need to start paying attention to our dog very closely. We may need to make some small adjustments on our part. So the yellow zone, just pop in maybe in the comments, what are some things that you are seeing in the yellow zone that you see on a daily basis? Does your dog pace or like weave back and forth? Do they stop and stand with their tail? We call it a flagpole tail when it's just boom, it's as stiff and rigid as possible. So important, make a huge difference in their connection, right? A lot of you guys are asking for that connection on a walk. Well, then we get to be very observant about our dog's communication as well. So when your dog is raising their voice, this is almost like a yield sign. We need to pause, assess what's going on, see if you can get your dog's attention. It may take 2 or 3 seconds. It may take, a really calm demeanor in yourself as well, because if you're panicked, right, your dog is going to panic and then we've escalated it. So if your dog's not able to check in, but maybe they're still, a little wiggly, or your dog is starting to look like a robot, right, very jerky movements, this is what we get to create more space from. Your dog may be asking for just you to move away for 10 feet. And we're going to talk about this in pattern games and what we call mark and move, but that yellow zone is really our observation zone. It doesn't mean you need to immediately react, but you do need to be more aware of what's going on around you and how your dog is starting to feel about that. And then red zone, your dog is shouting, they're yelling at you. And it may be very embarrassing, just like a kid throwing a tantrum in the middle of a restaurant. It's often things that are going on underneath that. They haven't had enough sleep, they're hungry, they're thirsty, all of these other things. So when your dog is shouting, what are you guys seeing when your dog is raising their voice? Do their hackles go up, the hair on the back of their neck or their rear? Do you guys see that spike? It's almost like a mohawk on their back. Do they tense up and flex really hard? Do any of you have barking, spinning, lunging dogs? Type it in the chat. We want to know, because this is them really saying, Mom, you're not listening, right? So I'm going to speak as loud as possible. And when you're in this red zone, just like when we're talking to a kid that's in the middle of a tantrum, there's not much that we can logically do to get them to stop right that moment, right? If I say, yo, calm down right now, that's not helping. That's absolutely not helping the situation. So forgetting their name. This is a big one that I hear. My dog forgets his name when we're out on a walk. So it could be that your dog is having difficulty focusing on a lot of other things. They don't feel safe. They're not confident. They've never been there. Things are distracting to them. So when we're in this red zone, this is not the time to ask your dog to do something or to order them or try to correct their behavior, because they're so overstimulated that the learning center of their brain has shut down. Now they're in the reacting center. They're only doing what they feel is necessary to survive and keep themselves safe. And it may also be to keep you safe, even if we're not, you're not physically in danger. They may think that you are. If there's a fox running by, right? I have to protect my mom from that fox. So I'm going to make a big display and get that fox to go away. So moving them as quickly and as safely as possible. This is the number one thing that we can do when our dog is in that shouting mode, when they're in that red zone. We need to find something that we can block the stimulation with, like a car or a bush, a trash can, a driveway, adding in that space and then calming yourself down. Because when we're calm, our dogs tend to calm down as well. Yeah, go for it, Yo.
I was just going to say, so what are you hearing her say? So when we talk about, these are the zones. So this is basically for you to interpret what your dog is saying. Now, what to do about it? Let's talk about that really quickly. Green zone. What do you do if the dog is in the green, Julie?
Yeah, green is go. Right? So that's where your dog is able to handle things. They may be showing, a little bit of stimulation, but they're still in that training mode. We're still able to communicate in a positive and effective way. So green means go. Let's keep going.
Yeah, that means that you can say your dog's name and they might look at you, or you can go, "Hey, let's go here." You do a little tap on the leg and they're going to listen to you. Now, the yellow zone, she said, right? Raising their voice. They're not comfortable. They're on the verge of screaming at you. But this is, to me, the yellow zone is where you actually can step in and help your dog before it escalates, where they can't hear you.
Absolutely. So that's where we get to adjust our dog's behavior, because there is stress there, but there's not enough there's not enough overwhelm that we can still step in and either talk things out. We can work with them. We can train with them. So we want to be really, yellow is almost like a yield. You want to stop. You want to take notice of the environment, take a big, deep breath, calm yourself down, and then continue to observe what's going on, right? Keep your eyes on your dogs. I can't tell you how many times I see people out face glued into their phone. Their dog is jumping and barking and trying to get their attention. And then, of course, things go wrong from there. So
let's help Josephine. Yeah, let's go through with Josephine, because we don't really have in the book, we put down like all the different body language signals and what to do. But so she said, Milo jumps on other dogs that jump on me, mainly big dogs. So the jumping is that red, yellow, or green. Drop it in the chat. Jumping on other dogs. What zone is that? Just do real quick. Red, yellow, green. Just put red, yellow, green.
Oh, I love that Anita knows her yellow zone. She's like,
I know. I'm going to put it up in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm putting these two up. Yep. It's red. Absolutely. I'm glad that you know that. Now, if jumping is red, what's the color before red? Yellow. Yellow. And that means that there was a sign. Where was her thing? There we go. So Anita says tensing up, freezing is our yellow zone before the explosion. So let's just say Milo stops, closes his mouth, starts staring for more than 2 or 3 seconds, looks over at you for a second and goes back to stare at that other dog. That's yellow. So Josephine, that's when you jump in. That's when you go, "Hey, Milo, let's go this way. Let's create more space." Let's do something different. Let's get your eyes away from that other dog. You don't want to wait till you get in the red zone to try and maneuver out of there. I mean, thank goodness Milo's a small dog, but if you guys have a 140-pound dog, it can be ugly and it's embarrassing. It might hurt you. It can be dangerous. And the reality is the more often your dog practices staying in the red zone, they're constantly on tilt. And now you've got a dog that's over threshold all the time. And then you talk about stacking, right? Just constantly over and over and over. None of your walks will go very well after that, right?
Yeah, and if you're reaching that red zone multiple times, if that's your walk, 3 times a day, then we really need to assess more of what's going on under the surface, right? That's where we really get to dive in deep to that ice glacier mode and find out why are they staying in that zone and how can we address that? Do we need a med check? Do we need to go to our vet and start talking about their health? Do we need to, find help? And we're going to talk about the environment and doing, setting them up for success. But if your dog is constantly in the red zone, there's a lot going on there, but we really need to address internally what's going on before we can completely change that behavior.
Absolutely. So drop it in the chat. Was that helpful? It's really important to understand canine body language because you want to know whether you need to step in or it's okay for you to keep walking. When we say step in, what we're talking about is creating more space, crossing the street. That's where all the emergency turns come in, right? Scattering food on the grass so your dog can put their nose down instead of staring at that trigger. All right. Chasing after cars. If your dog is already at the end of the leash, that's the red. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. What we're talking about is create. Is that you, Julie?
Yeah. Sorry. I was just making sure we're still good on Facebook. Yeah. So we're
okay. So reading the environment. This is why it's important to understand what is the environment saying to you. So when we talk about where are you walking your dog? That's what we're going to address right now. What are you choosing for your dog's experience to be like? Right? Looking for an environment that keeps your dog the least ways of going into the red zone is the choice that you want to make. As your dog becomes more skilled at walking on a loose leash, then you can start to progress up the ladder into new environments. But choosing a place that allows your dog to progress at a level where they're constantly in the state of success is where you want to go. So if you practice walking loose leash in your backyard, you're going to want to progress. So here's a little ladder that we do with our students. So level 1 is foundation. This is where your dog feels the most safe. Where are they allowed, where will they be okay to eat, sniff, sleep? It's typically in the home. So you start off teaching loose leash walking in the home, right? And we're going to tell you about how to teach position in just a second. Then you're going to build on that skill by taking it into the backyard or front yard where they hear mild distractions, an airplane going by, they can smell the scent of the dog next door. And then it becomes a little more reliable as you start to branch away from their safe zone and go, 2 or 3 houses down in the neighborhood. So it's a familiar environment, but it's not something they actually live in. So it's a place that they've walked, right from the beginning. And as you progress your loose leash walking into more advanced environments, it would look like some place that is, you got mild distractions, but they're at a distance. They're at a distance that your dog can tolerate, that your dog can stay in that green zone, maybe like just a little bit of the yellow zone. And then when we talk about being an expert at loose leash walking, which takes a while, takes a long time, takes a lot of practice, not necessarily time. That means your dog's able to go through all the different steps to get to that level. So what we find a lot of students do that puts their dog in the wrong place is that they're not understanding how the environment works with their dog. So it's important to take a look. Is there fresh cut grass? Is the weather changed? Is there construction going on? Is there this, the sound of traffic right near the area that we're walking? You want to really take a look at that environment before you put your dog out there. And that's going to affect the way that your dog decides to walk on a loose leash or not. Right? If it's a lot, if it's too much for them, they're going to show you those different zones, right? So going forward, what we'd like to do, what we prefer is trying to stay in that green zone. All right. Anything you want to add to that, Julie?
No, I think that's great. And every environment is going to trigger your dog differently. So just remember, when you're traveling or when you go over to other people's houses, what does that do to your dog? What kind of environment change is that like?
All right, we're right at the 1 hour mark and we are finishing up. I think we just have a few more slides. So we're good. So if you guys okay to just keep going on?
Yes. All right. So equipment and setting your dog up for success. So the difference between a collar and a harness. We love this Y-shaped harness because it really takes the majority of the pressure off of your dog's neck, especially if you're here and you have a dog that's pulling. The more pressure that we put on the neck, not only is it putting stress on the throat, it's the eyes, it's the ears, it's the thyroid. There's a lot going on in your dog's neck. So taking and redistributing that pressure with a harness is what we would recommend. And we can always give you some more tips and tricks for that. Being prepared before you leave the house, just like you would with a kid. If you walk out of the house and you don't have diapers, you're going to end up in a messy situation pretty quickly.
Well, so only if you have a baby, because you don't need to go out if you don't have a baby with diapers.
Yeah. So choosing the right leash, big dogs, little dogs. Does your dog bite at the leash? If you have a German Shepherd and you have a real thin leash, that's a one snap move to get free. So just being really mindful of what kind of leash. I never, ever, ever recommend those extendy leashes because of the chance for your dog to break away. The tension can break, or it could, if it falls out of your hand, it's going to bounce behind them and make really scary noises. So choosing the right leash for your dog for their size. What are you doing to prep before you walk out the door? Do you have your poop bags? Do you have your house keys? Why not get some treats? Why not get some cookies or some toys that you can play with your dog, that you can reinforce that good behavior, right? You've got to take some poop bags with you anyway, so you might as well throw some treats in your pocket or in that nice treat bag that we have there showing. And if you're really, really struggling with the walk and you are focusing on the training, but everyone else around you is kind of spoiling all of that, getting your dog a bandana or a vest that says, I'm in training. Now, it should not say service dog. It should not say service dog, because that's not what that vest is for. But it does say, I'm in training, give me space. And that can be a huge help to keep other people from approaching your dog and ruining all that hard work that you've been doing with them. So preparing before you leave the house, get yourself together, get yourself in the right mindset. If you have had a crappy day at work, if you are sick, if you just had a fight with your boss or your partner, that's not the moment to grab the leash and storm out the door, because you're already not focused, you're not prepared, and your dog is either going to take advantage of your lack of focus, or they're going to feel that tension that you're bringing into the situation, and it's going to escalate their behavior quite a bit. So just making sure, it sounds cheesy to a lot of people, but it's so important just to take a second to reset, make sure you feel good and that your head's in the right place before you just walk out the door. I find it makes a major difference, especially when you're dealing with an adolescent. Don't go out the door going, oh, this is going to suck, because then, yeah, it probably is. So have a great time. This is going to be our best walk ever. Nothing's going to go wrong. We're going to have the best time of our lives, and I am so prepared that I know it for sure. I have a client that has a mantra. She says, I am a calm and confident woman. even when she doesn't feel that way. When she
I
goes
love
out the
that.
door, she said, I am a calm and confident woman. This is a 70-year-old woman. And every time she steps out the door, she said, I am a calm and confident woman. And you know what? It made a big difference in how her dog started responding to her.
So Anna, we have a question. We have a question from Anna about the leash biting. What I would suggest is just let's set up a call with you, because it really depends on why and when they're biting the leash. I mean, just changing the leash isn't going to always do the trick. Usually it's done from frustration. It's one of the things that's in the red zone that we see a lot with dogs. So, Julie, if you can reach out to Anna and just see if she'll book a call with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on. And we are almost at the end. So setting up for success really means that you want to set up way before they go outside. So when you are, like she said, grabbing the equipment and grabbing the leash, you want to refrain from allowing the door to open if your dog's overly excited. One of the things that we do to help pet parents calm their dogs down or slow down the exit is to toss food near the door when you're opening the door, or right when you get outside, keeping that loose leash right from the beginning. Asking for a paw, asking for a nose target, or in here, we're doing a pattern game of the 1, 2, 3 treat right when you walk out the door. And for some of our pet parents, this is their walk. It's in their driveway. This is all that they get to do. And because their dog goes into that red zone as soon as they hit that driveway. So it's important to slow down the exit. If you've got a dog that goes in the red as soon as you open the door, then a lot of your training is going to be done by the door. Next is asking for support. Go through your neighborhood without your dog and record, because then you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, there's a dog over here barking at the window. No wonder. Or, this person's constantly got the construction going on, and that's, sometimes a problem. Record what your neighborhood looks like so you can see what might be some things that your dog is not comfortable with. And then ask someone to take a couple walks with you. Instead of going out there and lone wolfing it, go out there and ask a friend to join you. Let them say, hey, you watch the environment. What I want you to look for is if you see a dog, off leash in the garage, if you see a dog barking at the fence, like give me a heads up, because that might be all it takes for you to get enough time to cross the street. And we had a client, a beautiful, wonderful family, Rita and Terry. They adopted a 1-year-old dog that had who had been known to bite. So they had a bite history, and they bit a few other dogs. So they knew they couldn't bring their dog around other dogs. Dog's name is Maya. Family was in their upper 60s, I would say. And they went out as a team. They would she would hang back, or he would hang back with the dog, and the other person would go out about 10 feet, and they'd say, oh, there's a dog at the garage. Go ahead and cross the street. And that's all it took for them to work together to really grasp the idea of reading the environment and working with the dog. And now it's been over a year, and they're doing really, really well. Not one incident. Not one. And they can have people in the home. They see multiple dogs, out in their neighborhood. They also took a little flyer with Maya's picture and say, I'm new to the neighborhood. Please give me space. I'm not comfortable with other dogs. And she said she gave each one of her neighbors a little flyer, and they're a wonderful couple, and they're doing really, really well. But those are some of the things you can do. Just ask your neighborhood for support. All right. All right. Learning your dog's candles. So, Julie, when we talk about candles, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the candles that you light in your living room? You're muted, girlfriend.
Duh. So they're definitely lit, but these are metaphorical candles. So your dog's stressors, what we call triggers, sometimes you'll hear us talk about triggers, the things that overexcite or frustrate your dog. And these are, if you notice, there's candles below that boiling water, right? If you have one candle under there, it's probably just warming up the water a little bit. But the more candles that we have under there, let's say over a given day, right? So throughout your dog's day, let's say they've had to go to the vet or go get grooming. That can be a really big trigger for some dogs. So there's 1 or 2 candles under there. And then we hear some thunder outside. Okay, well, there's another candle. That water's starting to get really hot and it's starting to boil. So now we're moving into the yellow zone of stimulation of our dog. And then all of a sudden they see a cat or a squirrel outside the window. Boom, huge explosion. The water's boiling over. We've made a big mess. And it's really hard to get that water back into the bucket, right? So we need to be really conscious about how many candles our dogs are dealing with during the day and what those candles are, because they're different for every dog. My dog actually enjoys going to the vet, and I know that sounds quite odd, but because the vets have always given her tons of treats, they tell her how pretty she is, they pick her up and they love on her, and it's a wonderful experience for her. But not all dogs feel that way. Same with grooming. How's your dog's tummy doing that day? How have their poops been? Did they eat a good meal in the morning? Did they have playtime with friends? That could be very overstimulating. Some dogs don't easily calm down from going to the dog park or going and playing with mom and dad's dogs. So even both good and bad excitement, right? So what we see as good and bad, very, very subjective, but we call it good stress, bad stress. Good stress meaning the night before your wedding, right? Oh my God, I'm so stressed. I'm so excited. I can't sleep. It's still the same reaction that's going on in your body. The same stress that you're feeling before that, the night before your big final, is the same stress that you're feeling the night before your wedding. They're both internally building up. Your blood pressure is increasing. Your tummy feels bad. Your brain is in a fog. And we want to just remember how many of those experiences, both good and bad, that our dogs are dealing with over a day. Because the more candles that we throw under that bucket, the faster that water is going to rise, and then it's going to overflow. And that's where we get these explosions of behavior: the jumping, the lunging, the barking, the spinning. And that's both on and off leash. So the most important thing to know is, what are your specific dog's triggers? What are the things that build that stress up? Remember, good stress and bad stress. Identifying and tracking them. Keep a diary. So drop it into the chat. What are some things that tend to raise your dog's blood pressure? Is it seeing their best friend across the street? Is it going to your mom and dad's house? Tell me what's going on when you're hearing these candles. What does that look like with your dog? And then,
so what are common triggers? That's what you're asking for. What are some common triggers?
Yeah, I want to know what their dogs are dealing with. So I know I have a smattering of triggers that are up here on the screen, but not every one is going to be a problem for every dog. So what are your dog's triggers that you're hearing in this process? And then identifying those and tracking them. Keeping a journal, a diary, a daily tracker of the things that are exciting, stimulating, frustrating towards your dogs. Ooh, the delivery truck backing up. Yeah, because that beeping noise, big time.
It's not just the sight or the sound of it, but it's like at what distance, what time of day, identifying not just what that candle is, but at what distance, what level of volume that is going in. Here we got Carol saying cats and skateboards. That's a big one.
I hear you. Yeah. And then planning and preparing around that. If it's a time of day, if you notice that you're tracking and all of these things are in the morning, or they're all on a Thursday, or they're all, split up into very specific times, we want to be very conscious about walking our dogs during that time and prepare so that we have an emergency plan if things do go wrong. We know which direction we're going to go. We know how to ask for help in those situations. And that's where we get to de-escalate the situation. So adding that distance, giving your dog some more time to process, asking others for help and for support, or just showing up to a workshop like this so that you can really start thinking and processing through these things that your dog is already feeling.
Yeah, you know what? Give you guys like props to you for even being here. This is really I love seeing people come in and want to learn more. This is why we put these things together, just to kind of help our community, help people that really want to learn more. I love it. All right, as we talk about training walking position, finally, we're going to talk about how do you train your dog to walk on a loose leash. There are many, many, many ways to teach your dog to walk on a loose leash. And to be honest, the way that we do it is we start without a leash. We start with just a handful of whatever that dog's high value reinforcement is. And we say, I'm going to pay you for just walking with me. So rewarding your dog by your side, and then thinking, because you've already done all of your thinking and planning, where do you want your dog to walk? Wherever you reinforce your dog, they're going to be like, oh, that's where my paycheck is going to be delivered. No different than going to an ATM machine. Like, you don't have to look for it. You guys all know I'm sure internationally, you click an ATM machine, the money comes out in the same little spot. So you're just looking for a slit, right? You're familiar with where that's delivered. Same with your dog. If you deliver that reinforcement in the same spot every single time, they're going to hang out there. That's where all the good stuff is. I would, right? Everybody would. So reward your dog where you want them to hang out, and that's where they're going to be. Now, once you've gotten to the point where you are teaching, that without a leash, then you start to add the leash, because the leash sometimes is a big problem for some dogs. And if you discover that the leash and the harness and the, collar tags are all making things challenging, then that's the training that you're in right now. That's where you're going to stay. And you're going to work on changing the way that your dog feels about having that equipment on. Once you get really good at teaching reinforcement history, like establishing that, then you can start to reward for focus, for little check-ins here and there, right? Your dog has gotten to a new environment, you've let them explore, and then they start going, oh, this is not a big deal anymore. Hey, mom, what you doing? They start checking in. You want to reinforce that. Now, a lot of families, I hear a pet parent talk, and I'll go, show me an image of what you really want. And they'll, send me a picture of their dog like staring at them. And I'm like, God, that kind of torque on the neck is really going to do some damage. So check in and constant eye contact are two different things. So when we do focus games, it's not about the constant staring at a pet parent. It's just checking in, whether it's at a distance or, especially because we live in the city and there's things going on. We want to make sure that we have them check in to say, hey, are we going left or right? Or are we okay with this space? Right. So building a check-in focus or reinforcement history is really good. Another one that I did put in your guide is the figure 8 and 300 pack. There's other ways to teach your dog where you want them to walk. But bottom line, like we talked about at the very beginning, teach them without the distractions. Teach them without a leash, because sometimes the leash is a distraction. And then build the level. Start off in your backyard, your front yard, go in the neighborhood, go then to a park where you're way far away from any distractions. Figure out where you need to be, where you can create the success. And from success, then you can progressively get into the more challenging, environments. So there's figure 8, again, 300 peck. You can start to add turns, all of the walking positions. But the bottom line is reinforce your dog where you want them to be.
And not only do we have that awesome book that Yo is talking about that we're going to be able to send you guys, we also have the workshop coming up so that we're going to be able to teach you guys those specific games. So we'll get into that a little bit more later. I just wanted to add that teaser in there for you.
Yeah. Pattern games. So when we talk about, like, some of you guys going from the yellow to the red zone, right? You're like, how do I get out of this? Pattern games are ways for you to move from point A to point B with keeping your dog in a like, oh, cool, we're playing a game. So some of you guys might do the magnet where you like shove a whole handful of food in your dog's face and go, please just attach on to this and let me guide you over here. Pattern games give your dog something familiar that they've done before that's fun to do, especially when you're trying to move them. So the important thing to know about pattern games is that they're supposed to be really simple. And when you learn more about pattern games, which is basically based on the Control to Unleash Leslie McDevitt, she's got an entire book. If you guys want to, Julie, can you put that in there? Can you type that in there? Okay.
I will actually put that in the Facebook. I'll drop an Amazon link for you guys if you want to check it out on your own.
So pattern games are games that you can incorporate with your dog that gets your dog from point A to B. It's great if you've got a dog that's constantly overreactive. You can like say, hey, let's do this. And your dog goes, yeah, because they're familiar with that pattern. This can get you out of trouble. It can get you past, all the other dogs, people that are approaching. When someone comes towards you and you're like, yeah, stop, wait, hold on, give me some room. And they don't listen, totally jump into a pattern game. Some very common pattern games we have is the 1, 2, 3 treat, where you'll teach your dog that pattern that when you start to say 1, 2, 3, they go, oh, we're playing that game. And they start to look at you to get their reinforcement of whatever it is that you're reinforcing. Another one that we play with a lot of our pet parents is the up and down, where you can hold your dog in a certain spot while distractions go on, in front of you, or where, they pass by. So if you're living in the city and you've got someone going by, a whatever kind of truck goes by, you can play the up and down where your dog moves, moves their head up and moves their head down, moves their head up and moves their head down. So learning and incorporating pattern games into your training is going to really help get you out of emergency situations. And then that brings us to our masterclass recap. So let's just go over everything that we talked about really quickly. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about a workshop that we have that's in person that kind of goes through everything that we talked about. And I just want to double check that everyone has that guide that we dropped in throughout the Facebook group. So make sure you guys have that guide so that you can download that guide. So go ahead, give us a quick recap, Julie.
Yeah, I want to hear from you guys. So this is really important for you to type in the chat now. What is your understanding of what we've talked about? What did you get out of each section that we're talking about? Know what you want your walk to look at. Like, know what you want your walk to look like. What does that mean to you? What's the purpose of your walk? Going a little bit deeper into why we walk our dogs. What are some contributing factors to your dog's pulling? Remember that iceberg? What's going on underneath them? What are you hearing me say when I talk about an iceberg? What does it take to change your dog's pulling? Remember those 7 bullet points? You don't have to type them all, but I want to know what hit home the most for you guys. Reading canine body language. That's our stoplight. What did you hear when we're talking about the red, yellow, green? Did you learn something about your dog during that process? Assessing the environment. What does your environment look like? What's your ideal environment? Equipment for walking and loose leash handling. So being prepared, getting all of your stuff together before you get out the door, being in the right mindset, right? Your dog's candles. What are their triggers? You guys get to observe and record over the next few days. What are those things that are stacking up in your dog's life? And then, of course, the amazing pattern gains and training fun that Yo just talked about, and how we can change our dog's patterns by really reinforcing the change in their brain chemistry as well. We can't type that quick. That's okay, Anita. So of all of these things, what is your takeaway? What did you learn? What did you hear me say? What did you take away from this lesson? You don't have to answer for each question, but I love the enthusiasm, Anita. What hit home the most for you? What's different? What's something that you've never heard before that you're just now realizing about your dog?
Yeah, this is recorded and streamed. It is recorded and uploaded to YouTube. You guys can watch this later. Obviously, like if you have family members that are involved with your training with your dog, definitely share and extend the learning onto them. But asking you what hit home allows us to determine how to incorporate the training later or change things. So let's read off a few things before we go on to our next couple slides.
Yes. Being prepared before you head out. You always have the equipment, but not always the right mindset. That's very important. Examining and determining what's causing him to go into the red. Yeah, not just being frustrated in that moment, but noticing what's happening before and after. What to do during the yellow and the red. Back off, get out of the situation, work with them back in a lower stress environment. Love that. Great takeaway. Practice with him in position without the leash at home without distractions. I call this puppy protocol because we teach it from babies, but going all the way back, whether your dog is 15 or 4 or 8, going back to that, practice off leash in your living room and have some fun with it. Adjusting at yellow before they get to the red. Exactly. Before that water bubbles over. It's a partnership and a learning process about each other. Very good. It's the mindset that's so important. Reading her body language. I'm glad that you guys are taking in some of that language and communication. That's so important in this process.
All right. So we have what we have upcoming next is a 3-day workshop. We also have, well, anyways, the 3-day workshop is going to allow you to basically take some skills that we're going to give you. It's 2 days virtual, 1 day in person. You're going to have the opportunity to practice in front of us. So in our entire coaching team, it starts January 29th. So that is not too far from now. I think that
it's in 10 days. So be ready.
So the 3-day workshop allows you to take the information, the learning, and you're going to be practicing it with your dog in front of us. You're going to get some live coaching. And then we're going to be scheduling from day 1 and 2 a session with us to do in person or virtually. Now, if you're a current student, so some of you guys are current, Jennifer, Josephine, Rhonda, you guys, this is included in your program. So let me just go ahead and say that. Those of you that would like to add this to, learning a little bit more, if you're a dog walker or whatever your desire is, this is going to be very extensive. So day 1 and 2 is 29th and 30th. It's a 2-hour live with us virtually. Then day 3, we take in all of your information, the age and all of that. And then we schedule your in-person or virtual session on day 3 on February 5th. So we will, if you have gotten the guide, we'll be sending out the information for that on how you can, take advantage of that. And then the other thing that we have for you is just to book a call with us. If you are struggling in any way, whether you're one of our students or if you're a dog trainer, you can reach out to me. But if you're a pet parent and you're struggling with something, even if it's got nothing to do with loose leash walking, jump in, say, hey, I really need some support. We love to help. We love to figure out what's going on. We will give you a treatment plan. So book a call with us. That is a number. Now so just so you guys know, the 877 number is a group of people that answer the phone so that you can have a live person. Now, they are not a dog person. All they're going to do is take your information and give it to us so that we can book a call later. But it allows you to figure out a way to talk to us and schedule something so that we can get you on the phone and figure out what's going on. And from there, we can give you a plan. And it doesn't cost you a thing to ask for support. We want you to ask for support. And that's why we put this whole presentation together. So take a picture, screenshot it. If you've got your camera with you, if you've got a computer, screenshot it. And so you can get that information. And
yes, exactly. MB, no need for you or your dog to struggle since we are here to help and support. Absolutely. Yo and I are available. We work insane hours, but that's because we love what we do. We love our clients, and there's so much fun and opportunity for growth in what we get to do with our dogs.
Before we go, I just want to show you guys what the guide has. So you okay with that? Because I know
go for it.
Okay. Screenshot this in case you can't figure out how to click the link. Screenshot it, take a picture of it, because that is the link to download your guide. And let me go ahead and find that guide. So I'm just going to run through it really quick while Julie talks to you for a quick second. Julie?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming and being so vulnerable in your shares. We really do appreciate that. And just knowing that you're not alone in the struggle. There are millions of people that are having similar struggles around the world. So this guide is really going to help you. I encourage you to take some time and consider the workshop. We can talk about it on the phone, but it's going to give you, not only are we going to talk about the background, but we're really going to give you the tools and the exercises that are going to help progress you forward in this process. So any questions, drop them in. We're going to be, because Yo and I are obsessed with communication, we're going to be going back through the comments as well. So if you're watching this now, if you're watching it later, continue to post your questions, and hopefully we can respond here, or we can jump on a call with you as soon as possible.
All right. So here's a quick visual of what the guide is. So we've got your, title page or your front page, a little bit about us, then their table of contents. Like I said, it's about 22 pages. So we go through in text everything that we talked about in this master class. So let me just go back. What does leashless walking mean to you? And then why do dogs pull? You guys are going to be familiar with all of this stuff. How do we stop the pulling? Discover your dog's candles. So emergency turns. So just in case you didn't take notes, download this guide. Changing associations. We didn't talk about it, but it's a little hidden gem that's in your guide. Emergency turns. We slightly talk about it, but we didn't actually give you specifics, but I was able to type it. So now you've got it. Pattern games, 1, 2, 3, treat, the instructions on how to actually implement it, teaching the walking position. And we typed in a whole bunch of stuff about teaching walking position, including the 300 peck way of teaching walking position. By the way, all of these dogs that are featured here are dogs from our school. You're going to love this. We got here Sinatra, AKA Charlie, reading body language. We're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to be in here. We have a little more in depth of that. Choosing the right environment, using your environment. There's Show Pal.
Shout out to Rhonda and her beautiful dog.
And then how to get a hold of us. So you got your link to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of it. So download it if you have a chance. And
if you need some support in that process, just remember, drop a comment. We're going to be going back through the comments in all of our platforms over the next couple of days. So please feel free to reach out, either direct message, call the number, or continue to comment on this. And we look forward to getting to know you guys more on a personal level.
All right, guys, we're going to call it a night. If this was helpful, give us some love, because we all like positive reinforcement, even us humans. Yes, we do. Thank you, Julie. I know that it's not easy because you got a couple board and trained dogs in your home. I know I've got dogs.
Starting to hear some unrest in the background, but this was a lot of fun, and really love teaching with you, Yo. So thank you so much for putting all those graphics and everything together.
I love seeing our students in here. Josephine, Jen, Carol. I love it. Thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful evening. Again, this is being streamed into our YouTube page. So if you want to copy the link and share it with someone, you most definitely can. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for being here. Bye, Julie.